Great, so welcome to my talk. Good start. Boring businesses, exciting opportunities. Now, this is sort of a collection of my thoughts. It's not an instruction. It's just like, hey, FYI. Everyone kind of goes for these sort of consumer tools and prosumer tools, but no one's looking at AI workplace for enterprise operations, which is a shame. Let's get going. So I am quite partial to reading a lot of things and from people. And Charlie Munger, if anyone knows, is Warren Buffett's number 2. Very wise man. He's gone now, RIP. Lived to 99. Sorry. But anyway, what he says is mimicking the herd invites regression to the mean, which basically means if you mimic everyone, you're going to be part of the average. It's sort of like just statistics. What this also means is that if you go against the herd, it can lead to above or below performance, right? And take that as you will. I love the midwit meme. I think this is one of the greatest works of human psychology ever created, right? Because it compresses a lot of philosophy into just one place through just basically 4 base images. Now, this is the goal. If this is TLDR, if you forget everything else, remember this, right? The only thing you need to do is make useful stuff for people with money, right? That's it. All the other sort of try to play 4D chess shit, whatever. But honestly, make stuff for people with money. That's my talk. I'm joking. Cool. And this was me for a long time, right? This guy. And I will tell you how that happened. So, history of indie hacking. Joined indie hackers precursor to Wiring Space 2018. So me and Charlie over here. We were I was one of the first few people. Anyway, total number of projects 6. Total time spent on projects 5 years. Total revenue generated $400. That's from selling app data, which is probably morality used here or there. But it was on a crypto thing, so there's no honor amongst thieves. So some ideas were decent, but no traction. So this thing called Indie Stack Bible, which is like a Trello board for collecting the best software suggestions for indie founders. Everyone's trying to build. So what are people using? It's literally a Trello board, which is great. Got quite a lot of users. Got a lot of free Trello credits. Portal Gun. So I was quite proud of this one, but it was like a GitHub repo for your liked YouTube videos. I know Sai was talking about YouTube stuff. But basically, you can go into my portal and see what my algorithm is, essentially, what things I like. And instead of say, hey, what's the latest thing on YouTube? I can just show you my portal and you can see it. SheetSpread, which is a Google Sheet add-on for creating scheduled reports to stakeholders. Kind of a Salesforce had this internally in their app, and I just made it for Google Sheets because as an analyst, which was my background, I'd always have to send these sort of scheduled reports to people, and it's quite annoying if you did all the analysis on Google Sheets. Merge Magic, it was to help you automate merging Salesforce data. Dolphin Dash, crypto coin auditor to help you grade shitcoins so you don't get rug pulled. Crypto sniping bot to help you buy ICO tokens before anyone else does. This was, again, borderline. Well, it wasn't unfair, there's no rules, but you can basically get coins before everyone else does because you have an event trigger that blah, blah, blah. Okay, some subtle hints, though, did arise. So the things that were working was actually within my company. So I'm sorry, I got 2 of my former co-workers here, Joe and Ben. But one thing I noticed was that I was building things internally for my business. So my background was operations, but I was still coding on the side. And creating things like the mapping tool, which is for sales reps, they use this every day, or half of the sales reps use this every day. I could see statistics. And it was for basically doing putting customers and prospects on a map and using social engineering so they can see where people are. Customer A is in Bristol, customer B is actually across the street. Hey, customer A, we just sold to this customer B, blah, blah, blah. Automated CRUD operations. So CRUD just means create, read, update, delete. But anyway, helping for that to do into Salesforce, but usually through Google Sheets. I built an AI chatbot in Slack. They used RAG, which is just helping just retrieve information from my internal documents, knowledge bases, taken from me by the US team and turned into a company-wide app. I'm still obviously not salty about that. And these guys have not heard the end of that. So this gave me a lot of clout, but no money. At the same time as this goal going on, OpenAI released this API, right? This is GPT-3, and before everyone thinks I'm a fucking suit, this is when I actually joined, I got in there, so yeah, right at the beginning, so yeah. But I was looking at this and sort of it got me thinking about all these different things. And then opportunity presented itself. So one of my friends who owns a small construction tech company asked me to help one of his customers with the Google Sheet automation. It was for rating their suppliers. They want to streamline it. I'd never gone to construction. I was like, okay, this would be simple because I'm doing this thing in work already. I'm doing all this Google Sheet stuff, Google Forms, blah, blah, blah. Easy money. Turned out that didn't work because they were using Excel and Microsoft Teams. I was like, what the hell's that? And then Google Sheets wasn't functioning because they have a Google account. So I was like, yeah, I'll make you an app. Didn't know how to make an app at all. Had to figure it out on the fly. But I ended up making the app instead, and they were like, hey, I was like, hey, do you want to pay for it? They were like, yeah, cool. So yeah, that's how Citrix was born. What is Citrix? It's the company that I ended up building, and it was basically all my failed ideas repositioned into a new market, right? Where it turns out that actually it was quite good. So what it helps you do is just create forms that collect internal feedback on construction suppliers for like large companies. Let's say you have 15,000 suppliers and you want to get KPIs on all of them. Across loads of different, so 6 KPIs, 15,000 suppliers, like 90K data points. That's quite a lot. And then helps you put that on a dashboard. And then from my AI experience at the time, chat with your data through an AI interface and find unique insights. Needless to say, their minds were blown. Here's some screenshots. Here's a dashboard. Here's this, some of the forms. It's kind of like instead of doing the main innovation was actually doing deterministic questions instead of ranking 1 to 5. So you can build up really solid data because it's just like, hey, they do this, they do that. Simple as that. Which was kind of unearthed, but we found out later on this was really a top selling piece. Here's a dashboard. Here's AI insights. It's not even formatted that way. Like this is formatted even that well with Markdown. It's just like, but they just saw this. They thought I was summoning the devil or some shit. So myself, my co-founders sold the business to a larger construction tech company in 2025, January. So that was like 3-4 months ago. So it's roughly 14 months from launch to signing the first sales contract. No, it's the final sales contract, sorry. Yeah. So yeah. Now, it felt a lot like plain luck, right? But I had a sense, towards the end, especially after the acquisition, I was like, there are some underlying patterns that we accidentally exploited. And I want to look into that a little bit more and share that with you guys today. So, lessons from the literature and some realizations. I love this book, 0 to 1, Peter Thiel. Everyone should read this. It's just like essentially just the best way to frame how you do startups. What they say is proprietary technology needs to be at least 10x better than alternatives in an important dimension. Anything less than that would be too incremental and would fail to stand in crowded markets. So like basically incumbents, people who use stuff are not going to change because unless it's 10x better. Like, I don't care if an Android phone has like 3 more features than my phone, I'm just not going to use it. Simple. Another thing, again, you can see a trend here. But the important thing is to keep playing and play against weak opponents and to play for big stakes. Play against people who are weak. Here's a challenge, right? Okay, game of basketball, you score 10 points, you get 1 million. If your opponent scores 1 point, you get 0. Pick an opponent, right? It sounds trite, and everyone's like, this is fucking obvious, what am I here for? But most people unintentionally go for that. You're like, what are you talking about? So what this is high growth, high volume SaaS and grassroots growth markets full of young crack devs with backgrounds from the most prestigious software companies. Think about Sai. Do you want to compete against Sai? Absolutely fucking not. VC funded startups will happily burn through cash and take the entire market. Crowded market with 0 moat apart from speed. Low switching costs. Customers can just churn easily. SEO demons, influencers who will know every trick in the book. Average customers extremely price sensitive. And you think about these like innovative, disruptive, cool, free, and then, but what you're really taking on is market risk because you have to validate that people actually want this that you're building, and every good idea is taken in inverted commas. Sorry, I'll name people. This is LeBron James and Linda James. So, okay, that's LeBron, right? And some people can beat LeBron, right? They're like, hey, listen, I'm Steph Curry. I can just shoot threes from the halfway court, and that's fine. But I am not. So how do you tell if you're in this market, right? Industry is full of boomers, right? Competitors haven't shipped a new feature in years. Terrible UX, right? Few market participants and no real moat. Customers have stable cash flow, so less enterprise. Customers have real business needs that affect the bottom line, right? So they actually want stuff. Customers expect long SLAs of support, months. And people refer to ChatGPT as ChatGDP, right? That is not like, I am not stretching, I'm not lying here. This is literally what happens, right? But you're taking on execution risk. There's already competition in space. You just have to destroy them, right? That's it. That's all you need to do, right? And, I love Linda, but she doesn't stand a chance. This is your main competition, by the way, an Excel spreadsheet, right? This is literally what people use most of the time. And they think it's sick, right? So it's a reflection, like, who are you actually playing against? Like, just think about this for a moment. You think you're sort of just moving about, but just think about who you're actually playing against. So what is a boring and sexy business to me? So it's a business that sells software to all industries of customers and competitors who are a generation or more above you. And so that industries could be insurance, waste management, farming, manufacturing, construction, food and beverage. These are really like ossified industries, and no one looks at it. And the reason why is, if you look at that, they got all the money. All right, 82%. This is in the US, but I imagine this sort of parallels anywhere else, right? So think about who's got the money. It's also not all just big business, right? You got different structures. You've got SMB, which is like, you can sort of automate. Mid-market, which is like, you can sort of do a little thing. And then enterprise, which is more high touch, where everyone thinks like these big companies and like blah, blah, blah. And it's like almost like passing a bill through Congress kind of thing. Car management, right? Raised $100 million. Very bullish about this. $1 billion valuation. It's a New Zealand unicorn. Crazy, right? But quick question is, what do you think the odds are of them getting disrupted in the next 10 years? Pretty much zero. They're going to win this market for ages. No one's going to touch them because no one even knows they exist. And they're a $1 billion business. Now, I love this chart as well. So it's a diffusion of innovation blind spot, right? So most people sell here. They look at like, hey, we're going to get people who are like, they love new tech, they like trying things, early adopters, like, hey, we're going to get people who, they just want to do things better. Early majority, and this is where everyone thinks like, oh my God, tech is just eating up everything, right? But that is completely untrue. You got laggards here who, because it's a long tail, it could take a decade for that tech to get there, right? We just think it's some sort of linear sort of timescale, but this is completely untrue, and that's where all the boomers are. So what it actually looks like is this, is a power law, right? So the top 20% takes 80% of all the profits, all the mind share, all the distribution, everything, and everyone's just focused on that, right? And then there's a long tail there, and that's where the laggards are. That's actually what it really looks like, and that's sort of why my approach is to be like, ignore this, go for that. So there's another quote. So the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. It's unevenly distributed, and that's really my thing. And my contrarian take is that like we live in a very tech bubble. And I researched the other day. There's as many fax machines as SaaS customers, right? So you think they're like shit's going on, but actually people are stuck in 15 years ago. So how do you compete? So turn boring into sexy through design. There's a massive user engagement problem, which is the fact that like there's all this old software. Everyone uses the iPhone every single day. We see this sort of like user UX patterns. When they go into the office, they don't see that. They just see this old software they've been using for 10 years, right? So this is an example, right? Touchland, it's hand sanitizer, right? Imagine if you sent like Purina hand sanitizer to your mate for their birthday. They'd be like, what the hell are you doing? But people would send this to people as presents in the US. They sold for $880 million, right? Obviously, that's Dyson on top, right? It will make you want to, clean your kitchen floor. Liquid Death are selling literally water. But it's styled for like a certain sort of demographic, valued at 1.4 billion. Zip, which I actually used when I was at a previous job, they just made procurement with like a visual flow, and that's their whole model. So they're valued at $2.2 billion, right? Just through this one vector of improvement by 10x. Now, another approach is reimagining workflows as AI. So obviously, Archimedes is very known for this. So give me a place to stand and a lever long enough, and I will move the world. I.e., leverage is everything. And you got David and Goliath. Everyone thinks that David was the person who was an underdog, but actually Goliath just brought a sword to a gunfight, essentially. And he's got, absolutely just shot in the head, essentially. Think about how you can leverage AI to outgun large competitors at a fraction of the cost and fraction of the time. Simon was saying Claude Code, all these different things. What they enable you to do is yes, you can build an AI thing on the front end, but in the back end is where the power is. You can build features. Like the other day, I was writing some code and I literally built sort of 6 features in 30 minutes. I was cooking dinner at the same time, right? And they all just passed. They all got accepted in the PR requests, like that. There was no even debate about it because it was perfect. This is the first time I actually did some research. This is the first time in 46 years that a single person can take on a 100-person team, right? The last time it happened was the discovery of the electronic spreadsheet in 1979, right? Where people used to do spreadsheets manually by hand, and someone could actually replace them with a digital version. This is the time we live in, and this is why everyone's going crazy about AI. Just from a historical context, this is huge. So sounds good, mate, but how can I find good ideas if I'm not in the space? I can't exactly scratch my own itch. Simple answer is the process of discovery and observation, but I'll tell you the sort of right ways you think about this. So one way is to unbundle products and services in that space. So most vendors in these boring spaces are monolithic. They are spread so thin that they can't optimize on any given product, but they win through just sheer scale. But point solutions can beat them by catering and optimizing specific use cases. So think about Facebook, right? Think about every little thing on that feed page is an app now, right? And think about the combined net worth or valuations of all these apps that were just lifted from the Facebook page, from the Facebook feed page, right? It just speaks for itself. You can do this in these old spaces because they're essentially a bit like Facebook. They've got loads of features, loads of products, and they're all kind of not optimized for their specific use cases. Also, Reddit mining. So you can just go to dentistry subreddit, type in software, and it'll tell you every single thing about what people are looking for. And then you just go, cool, this is concrete demands. People are looking for these things, right? And you just build a better version or 10x version of what already exists, right? I think it's kind of there's a straight line essentially, there's a path. I'm not saying this is like a sort of perfect correlation, but yeah. Look for Excel templates. That's your main competitor, right? So look for Excel templates. Okay, what are people doing for dentist Excel templates? That means people use them, and you can even look at Ahrefs, which we'll talk about, and see the traffic going to them. You say, okay, fine, there's 2,000 hits a month, then that's 2,000 people looking for dentist Excel templates. So why not make one 10x better? Because I know I can, because we know they're already going to be shit, because you're looking for Excel templates. So yeah, mate, but how do you find customers? I don't see them on Twitter, bro. So, yeah, that's gonna put the fear of God into a lot of people, right? A phone. So you go speak to real people. Speaking to real people gives you the highest bit rate of information. What I mean by that? It means that if I just send an email get something back, if I use SEO and I don't really understand the real context and the real drivers behind the decision. And it gets a little bit lost. When you speak to somebody, if you can actually get on the phone to them, they give you a lot more context, give you a lot more of the feelings behind why they're buying it, all the little sort of things when they talk about their frustrations and their desired outcomes, which is what you should really be looking for, and not trying to sell them things like someone from Glen Ross or something. Like you can really try and understand how they feel about these things and what they're trying to get to. A lot of things they feel are really outside of work, right? If you think about all the things you do in the day basis at work, a lot of things that piss you off is actually like, you know what, I wanted to go for drinks tonight, but I had to do this report, or I got a thing tomorrow morning. Like, if I could remove these things out of your life, you would probably buy the software, because it's not even your money, it's the company's money. So you're like, fuck it, I'll just buy that to get this, right? And those are the hidden drivers that you don't really get until you actually pick up the phone. LinkedIn, again, underutilized. People think it's cringe, but actually it works. Content done well can create asymmetric returns, because if you're actually good at that, then you get way better. You can get that 10x again. DMs also work. I haven't really tried it, I just use the phone, but yeah. Okay, so there are downsides, right? So most people will that's a typo, but anyway, most people will ignore you when you reach out, right? You think, oh my God, let's go make 100 calls, 100 people are going to like you get through to like 8 people max, if you're lucky. And if they tell you no, that's almost like it's level 2 kind of thing. If they tell you to fuck off, then it is what it is. But then this is PvP, right? This is hand-to-hand combat. This is not like I'm going to do some like crazy thing to create distribution from day one. You have to compound interactions through social engineering. You have to speak to people. You have to leverage other conversations into other conversations. You have to find different angles, but it's a tough nut to crack, right? Really tough nut to crack. The business can seem dead for many months due to low volume. You don't get this endorphin high as some user signups and like Google Analytics views, which I used to get in my previous life. Oh my God, I got like 10 more views this month. I'm like, about to wear my turtleneck and whatever, So you actually have to be patient. And you often need things like integrations and compliance standards. It's not a must. A lot of people just want to export to Excel, but you have to think about that a bit more. So it's a bit more serious. Sales cycles can be long, but it's a bit like hunting. Like lions really literally starve for most of the time and they get one, buffalo or whatever, and they eat for the rest of the summer. You have a lot more face-to-face meetings and real-life interactions. You actually have to meet people, as people say, like belly to belly, and you can shake people's hands and whatever. And you have to invoice as well, pretty much like no Stripe. So I know people are crying right now, but yeah, you got to send real things to real people. But the upsides of this, right? Each contract can be worth 5 figures ARR, which means paradoxically you can grow very quickly, right? If every single time I make a sale, it takes me like maybe a couple months, and I put on 12K into ARR every single time, and I get 10 of them, I'm on 120. Like it could take me the same amount of time to get to do all your user stuff and get loads of like volume. But because you're a structural moat relative to the industry, you become a massive target for acquisition. Because everyone's like, I'm not going to compete with these guys. I'm just going to buy them out. You could be the answer to their question, right? They could go to the shareholders and be like, hey, you just bought this thing, right? And I think that's a real driver towards it. A lot of people who you think about these lag-on industries, they're actually very attuned to AI. They just don't know what to do with it because no one's presenting it to them. So they're like in this state of like hysteria of like, oh my God, like how do I deal with this? And if you're there like, hey, we can help you solve this problem. We use AI. AI is not the first thing we use, but we solve this problem by using AI, and that's it.
Let's say if I actually did do this and I don't have like existing knowledge, what's your kind of advice to someone who maybe doesn't have industry experience, but how to get there as quickly as possible?
So the great thing is I actually talked to someone the other day, Pavir, where he called me 4 days ago, 5 days ago. Anyway, and he asked for some advice because they just got into the medical construction space. I sort of gave him the precursor to this and told him sort of roughly how I would sell it or how I sold it. And he made, was it about a couple hundred calls?
Yeah, 200 calls in about 5 days and 2 demos booked. So
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not chatting shit basically. But
Alex Hormozy session right now.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, minus the muscles. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think the best way to look at it is to look at it in terms of not how do I throw my tech at this person, but really be a bit more like, okay, what's going on in this industry? Like construction is good because construction is a bit more like, there's really thin margins, really people who are very, a lot of people in construction are very eager to start to do new tech, and there's so much urgency and time, there's so many stresses and compliance things that if you actually bring something that's genuinely good, they will be receptive. So you don't need to do much like selling. You need to understand where they are and like what the sort of workflows are. And most of the sort of costs actually goes into workflows. In all these big industries, even like in hospitals, most of the work is in most of the sort of cost is in workflow. So you can say, if I can reduce it by 10, 20%, then it's worth having a conversation. So does that answer the question?
Yeah. Just a very quick follow-up question. Any tactical advice on building lists of emails or numbers so we can do 100 cold calls?
So the good thing is that when I was working in Samsara, I was working operations, so I actually was looking for getting lists for sales reps. There's a company called Lucia. Brits call it Lusha, but the Israeli company, they call it Lucia. But anyway, it's a very good tool for just scraping loads of data, and you see all your things. You create ICPs, which are just like the people you go to. Let's say you go to procurement or whatever, and get numbers, you call them up.
Awesome, cheers.
Next question for me. This related a lot because the startup I work at, we try and do something similar. We sell recruitment software to some ideally laggards. How do you overcome the the embedded, really old, really shit software that a lot of these laggers use
Yeah.
because they're long contracts, they're really embedded in their workflows, and then you have to overcome a massive change to sort of try and get something simple over the line.
Yeah.
How do you see that?
I think it's like, it's one of those things where like the market's big enough to find the people who are frustrated enough to change. I think a lot of times like people are satisfied with like just the crap because the crap works. But a lot of times if you find more of a business need, so a good business need is like, you know, the tide's turning, compliance is going up. There's things happening right now. The Building Safety Act is going on with the construction. People are being more, like after Grenfell, people are being more intentional about like things like behavior and things. So it helped the supply performance because like, oh, now you need to sort of jump into that, lean into that. So think about externalities affecting the business that will change, that will basically solve the inertia problem.
Thank you for the presentation. I really like your take on enterprise clients, I think, and I agree with most of them as well. I have a question about the product. You haven't mentioned this either in downsize or upsize, I think. The need for customizability.
Yeah.
Because I think the enterprise clients, they don't want to just go in your UI. I've seen that you didn't put a lot of focus on UI either.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? Like, what do you need to do to have that robust integration and data systems that?
Yeah. So like the way I put it is that there's people who want to do like loads of like features like this and that, and I just frame it in terms of like what is the specific outcome you're looking for, to then say okay whether it can be generalized. So some people might be like, hey, I want to have some certain approvals. Or why do you need approvals? Actually, because sometimes people put in really bad data, right? So you're like, okay, cool. Well, if you solve the data problem, would you need approval so much? We changed from being a rating system to being a deterministic question system. We have like custom forms. So that's kind of walk people off that ledge of like, I'm so worried about people putting really bad data in there, and like data is not thing. And so people have asked less about approvals. We did build approvals for one customer, but that's how I sort of answer that question. And people want, okay, I want integration to pull all my historic data in. When I'm like, hey, you know, a lot of your historical data can actually can pollute the new system because it's based off ratings and subjectivity. Data is really important, and they need to have that bedrock of bulletproof data. And so that's how you sort of like, and it's very true. And I've worked in a lot of data. Like, you don't want to pollute new data systems. So I think that's another thing. So, but you will have to build stuff. This is like the admission price. So yeah, but just try to be as general as possible.
Well, thank you again. Can we please give a round of applause to Gbade, please? Thank you.